So let's talk about errors in the world of asynchronous programming. You'll recall previously we did mention that we have this try-catch exception, that we have this try-catch block and the ability to throw errors like we do in other programming languages. And you can do that by doing try throw new error danger zone. And we can catch it like that. And then we can say console.log I caught the error. Whew. Okay. So now I'll say node error. And sure enough, I caught the error. Now let's throw in some asynchronous programming and see what happens. So I'm going to call set timeout, and the set timeout function, again, as we showed in the last part, takes a function of code to execute, and I'm going to have this function throw the error instead, and I'm going to call that after 2 seconds. And now we're going to see what happens. We're going to wait 2 seconds, and kaboom! What happened to our try-catch block here? We thought that we wrap any code in a try-catch block. When we throw an error, it should get caught by that. Well, unfortunately, the problem is this asynchronous calling kind of screws things up a little bit on us here. So basically, the try-catch block executes for the call to set timeout. So if set timeout itself were to throw an exception because you passed an invalid time, you passed an invalid function, the try-catch block would catch it and would print this out. However, all the set timeout function does with the correct parameters is push this function onto the loop, the sort of the stack of events waiting to happen, and then exit saying nothing's done. So all that's happened here is we've executed the set timeout, the try-catch block sees that no errors happened, we fall off the end of our script, and then Node just waits for this function to execute, and then it throws an error, and now we have a problem because there's no wrapping code for that function to catch that error. So what we can do is we can actually change where we handle this try-catch like this. We can say in that function, we can actually do the try-catch like that. Error. And there we caught it like that. Or we can actually do, which is a new pattern that we're going to be using in Node. So the problem is if it's my code, I can catch the error and I can, print console log, but I still might want to communicate to the caller of my asynchronous function that an error occurred, and I can't throw it because it'll make a big mess of their program or something. So actually, what we're going to do is we're going to create a sort of pattern here in the way we write functions and the way we work with asynchronous functions. So I'm going to go back to this read, this sort of asynchronous file reader we wrote here. And you'll notice that both callbacks we wrote actually take 2 parameters. One parameter is indeed the data we want, the file handle or the number of bytes read. But the first parameter in these asynchronous calls is almost always an error. And so this actually will let them send us back a signal an error to us if something has gone wrong, and it lets us test for whether something has gone bad. So then I can say, well, if error equals null and everything went well, execute this code. Otherwise, I can say console.log oh no's fail on open. And then I know that error has a code, and it also has a message like that. Now, if I try to open a file that doesn't exist, like that, I can say node fread, and you see that I've successfully handled that error without using a try-catch block. Similarly, here in the read, I'll say if error equals null, that means everything went well. I will console log the good message, else I will actually just borrow this code here, like that. And I'll still close the file because it's just the read that failed. But now you'll see that I can actually handle the error properly there and there. So, we'll say test.text. And now I basically have a piece of code that correctly handles all the errors that Node can send back to me and still work in a very sort of fluid asynchronous manner. So this is a pattern we're going to be using throughout all of our scripts in these live lessons and all of our Node programs. So I just wanted you to get very comfortable with it. The callbacks will always have an error. I think there are a couple of examples where they don't, but sort of any major function, any major library you're going to work with, the first parameter will be an error, and then any other data after that will be sort of in additional parameters. So that will be our introduction to error handling.